If you have watched part 1 and 2, you already know the basics of business analyst interviews. And let me be very honest with you, those questions alone are not enough to get you selected. Because in real interviews, after 10 to 15 minutes, interviewers stop asking definitions. And they start asking questions that sounds like this. Tell me about a time, what would you do if, how do you handle? And that's exactly where most candidates get stuck. Not because they don't know the concepts, but because they don't know how to think in real situations. They either give very generic answers or they try to make up stories on the spot, and interviews can immediately tell. So in this video, we are taking it up to the next level. I am going to walk you through 20 important interview questions, but this time we are going deeper. For every question, I'll show you what the interviewer is actually testing, where most candidates go wrong, and how you should answer with structure, clarity, and real-world thinking. And if you stay till the end, you'll start noticing a pattern in how strong candidates answer. And that's what will make you stand out. Let's get started. How do you handle incomplete requirements? Now, this is a very common real-world situation. In almost every project, you will never get 100% clear requirements from the beginning. Sometimes stakeholders give very high-level inputs, sometimes they are unsure, and sometimes they assume you already understand. Now, what the interviewer is testing here is, can you handle ambiguity, or do you get stuck waiting for clarity? Mistake most candidates make, they say, I wait for complete requirements. That's a red flag, because in real projects, you can't afford to wait. A strong way to answer is, I identify gap in the requirements, ask targeted questions to stakeholders, and break down high-level inputs into detailed requirements. I also validate my understanding before documenting. Let me make this more real for you. Imagine a stakeholder says, we need a dashboard. Now that's not a requirement, that's just an idea. Your job as a BA is to ask, what kind of a dashboard? What data should be shown? Who will use it? What decisions will it support? That's how you convert incomplete input into clear requirements. Here's a pro tip. Never say you wait. Always say you clarify and validate. How do you deal with multiple stakeholders? Now, this is another real challenge because in real projects, you're not dealing with one stakeholder. You're dealing with multiple people, and each one has different expectations. Some focus on business, some on technical feasibility, some on timelines. Now the interviewer is testing, can you manage different expectations? Can you align people? Common mistakes done. Candidates say, I communicate with everyone. That's too generic. A strong answer is, I identify all stakeholders, understand their priorities and influence, and ensure alignments through structured communication and regular discussions. Let's make it real. Imagine business team wants more features. Tech team says it's not feasible in time. Now, if you don't manage this well, it leads to conflict. Your role is to bring both sides together, align on business value, and drive a balanced decision. Here's a pro tip. Use the word alignment. It's very powerful in interviews. What will you do if stakeholders are not available? Now, this is a tricky one because it tests your independence. Mistake candidates make, I wait for stakeholders. That shows dependency. Here's a strong answer. I follow up through multiple channels, refer to existing documentation, and proceed with validated assumptions while ensuring alignment once stakeholders are available. Let's make it practical. In real projects, stakeholders are busy. Meetings get delayed. You cannot stop progress. So what do? Use existing knowledge, document assumptions, move forward carefully, validate later. Here's a pro tip. Show initiative, not dependency. How do you validate requirements? Now, this is one of the most critical responsibilities of a business analyst because writing requirements is one big thing, but making sure they're correct, that's where the real value lies. Now, think about this. If requirements are not validated properly, what happens? Developers build the wrong thing, testing fails, rework increases, deadlines get impacted. So, what the interviewer is testing here is, do you just document requirements or do you ensure they are accurate and complete? Common mistakes candidates make, I write clear requirements. That's not enough. A strong answer would be, I validate requirements through stakeholders' walkthroughs, reviews, and confirmation. I ensure requirements are clear, complete, and agreed upon before moving forward. Let's make this real. After documenting requirements, you don't just send them on email. You walk stakeholders through the document, ask if anything is missing, confirm understanding, get alignment. And in many cases, validation continues during UAT as well. Here's a pro tip. Always use the word validation and confirmation. It shows responsibility beyond documentation. What if developers don't understand requirements? Now, this is a very practical situation. No matter how well you document, there will be times when developers say, "This is not clear." Now, the interviewer is testing, how do you collaborate with the technical team? Do you take ownership of clarity? Mistake candidates make? I explain again. That's too basic. Here's a strong answer. I ensure clarity by conducting walkthroughs, providing examples, and using diagrams where needed. I stay available for continuous clarification during development. Let's make it real. Imagine a requirement says user should be able to update profile. But what does that mean? Which fields? Any validation rules? What happens after update? If this is not clear, developers will interpret differently. So what do? Sit with them. Explain scenarios. Give examples. Use visuals if needed. Here's a pro tip. Don't say I document clearly. Say I ensure understanding. How do you manage tight deadlines? Deadlines are part of every project. And this question is not about stress. It's about decision making. The interviewer is testing, can you prioritize? Can you stand structured under pressure? Mistake candidates make? I work harder. That's not strategy. Here's a strong answer. I manage tight deadlines by prioritizing high impact requirements, focusing on critical deliverables, and maintaining clear communication with stakeholders. Let's make it real. If you have 10 requirements and only time for 6, you don't try to do everything. You identify what delivers maximum value, focus on critical items, align with stakeholders. Here's a pro tip. Always show prioritization and communication. What is backlog grooming? Now, this is an important agile concept, but don't answer it like a definition. Think practically. Backlog grooming or backlog refinement is about preparing work for future sprints. Now, the interviewer is testing, do you understand agile in practice? Strong answer. Backlog grooming is the process of reviewing, refining, and prioritizing backlog items to ensure they are ready for upcoming sprints. Let's simplify. Backlog is like a list of tasks, but not all tasks are clear or ready. So during grooming, you clarify requirements, break large items into small ones, add details, prioritize. So when sprint planning happens, everything is ready. Here's a pro tip. Use the phrase ready for development. What is sprint planning? Now, sprint planning is where actual work gets decided. The interviewer is testing, do you understand team collaboration? Here's a strong answer. Sprint planning is a meeting where the team selects backlog items for the sprint and plans how to deliver them. Let's make it real. During sprint planning, team discusses requirements, clarifies doubts, estimates effort, commits to work. As a BA, your role is to ensure clarity, support the team, answer questions. Here's a pro tip. Mention collaboration, not just planning. What is a business rule? A business rule defines how a business operates. But don't stop there. Give an example. Strong answer. A business rule is a condition or guideline that defines how a system or process should behave. Here's an example. Discount applies only if user is premium. That's a business rule. Now, why this is important? Because it controls system behavior. It ensures consistency. Here's a pro tip. Always give an example. It makes your answer stronger. What is data modeling? Now, this may sound technical, but as a BA, you should understand the basics. Data modeling is about organizing data properly. Here's a strong answer. Data modeling is the process of structuring and organizing data to support business processes and system functionality. Let's simplify. If data is not structured properly, system fails. Reports are wrong. Decisions get impacted. So data modeling ensures correct relationships, proper structure. Here's a pro tip. Keep it simple. Don't overcomplicate. Now, if you're still watching, you will notice something important. These answers are not complicated, but the difference is clarity, structure, and real world thinking. That's exactly what most candidates miss. Let's continue. The next questions are even more practical. How do you handle scope changes? Now, this is something that happens in almost every project. You start with a defined scope and suddenly new requirements start coming in. Now, if this is not handled properly, it leads to delays, confusions, and even project failures. So, what the interviewer is testing here is, can you control changes or do you let the project go out of scope? Common mistake candidates make: I accept the change and update the document. That's not enough. A strong answer would be, I handle scope changes through a structured change management process. I perform impact analysis, discuss with stakeholders, and ensure proper approval before implementing any changes. Let's make this real. Imagine you are already mid project and a stakeholder says, let's add one more feature. Now, if you just say yes, timeline gets affected, cost increases, team gets overloaded. So, what do? Analyze impact, discuss with stakeholders, get approval, then implement. Here's a pro tip: always use the phrase impact analysis plus approval. It shows control. What is requirement prioritization technique? This question checks whether you can make decisions, not just list requirements. Because in real projects, everything cannot be done at once. So, what the interviewer is testing: can you decide what matters first? Common mistake: I prioritize based on importance. This is too vague. Here's a strong answer: I use techniques like Moscow to prioritize requirements based on business value and urgency. Now let's make this simple. Moscow means must have, should have, could have, won't have. Here's an example. If you are building an e-commerce app, payment feature will be a must have. Wish list can be could have. This helps the team focus on what delivers value first. Here's a pro tip: always connect prioritization to business value. What is functional requirement? Now, this is a basic question, but many candidates still answer it weakly. The interviewer is testing: do you really understand system behavior? Here's a strong answer: a functional requirement defines what the system should do, but don't stop there. Add an example. Example: user should be able to log in, user should be able to make a payment. These are functional requirements. Let's make it clearer. Functional requirements describe features, actions, system behavior. Here's a pro tip: always give examples. It makes your answer stronger and more practical. What is a non-functional requirement? Now, this is where many candidates get confused. Functional tells what system does, non-functional tells how well it does. Here's a strong answer: a non-functional requirement defines system performance aspects like speed, scalability, and security. Now, why is this important? Because even if a system works, if it's slow or insecure, it fails. Here's a pro tip: use this line. Functional is equal to what? Non-functional is equal to how well. What is a workflow? A workflow is a sequence of steps to complete a process. But again, don't just define, explain. Strong answer: a workflow represents the sequence of tasks involved in completing a business process. Example: order process. User places order, payment is processed, order is shipped. That entire sequence is a workflow. Why is this important? Because it helps visualize processes, it identifies gaps. Here's a pro tip: always relate workflow to real business scenarios. If you have reached this point, you're already ahead of most candidates. But here's the truth: watching questions is not enough. You need real project understanding. That's why I've created a full business analyst project series where you see how everything works step by step. And if you want structured preparation, my Udemy course covers everything you need. Links are in the description. This is just part 3. In part 4, we are going even deeper. Real mock interviews and live answering. That's where everything comes together. So stay hooked. And if you are serious about becoming a business analyst, subscribe and follow the full series. I'll see you in the next one.